Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining One Ass Cheek and Three Toes. I am your host, B. Strilla. Today is the National Hockey League Thursday, and we're going to bring out here, we got Jim. Of course, we put him front and center because he is Jim, the hockey guy. That's gonna be your nickname on this show, Jim.
I like it, right? I like it. Bistrilla, I love it. I like the introduction. Thank you. Great video package coming in. Ovi, we got a lot to talk about today. Yes, I am the hockey guy. As a lot of people can see, my hockey trophies, my bobbleheads, pucks, books, whatever you got. And the sun's in my eye, but that's all right. It's okay. It's a nice and sunny day out.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Hockey is probably the most skillful sport on the earth.
And we got Mad Yinser down there too.
Oh, I love it. I love hockey. It's the best sport. Well, I mean, in my opinion, it's the best sport because I play it. I love it. I cover it. Anybody else does any other sport, football or whatever? Hey, that's your opinion. I like the NFL, college, all that stuff. So, you know,
hockey
is such a skill sport considering what guys have to do.
Mm-hmm. Hockey was my first love. Hockey was my first love before football.
Well, that's cool, man. I wish more people would get into it, and that's what I'm trying here to do.
I'm into it. I get into it.
The audience. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying B. Strilla. I'm saying there's a lot of people out there that still haven't gotten on the train, and I'm here to educate people to get them on the train and get them hooked and stay.
What happened? What happened to me is I got into a football group, and I was so busy with that I fell away from hockey for a little bit.
Excuses.
Before that, I was always playing. I still play the hockey games. I like playing World of Show and NHL 25.
Yo, NHL 25. You know, so my favorite game of all time of the NHL series, NHL 94. I had it on the Super.
I love that one.
Anytime I got a new game for NHL, I changed the controllers to NHL 94 controllers because I was like, nope, I don't like the new setup. I don't like how it plays. No. Give me the NHL 94, the setup. That was my game. Loved that game. NHL 96 was pretty good too. The odd number years though were weird because the odd. I know we're not even in double yet, but I'm talking about video games here. But here's the thing, the odd number for NHL was they were so off. The even number years were better for some reason. I don't know, just me. But I will say this, the EA soundtracks from 2000 to 07, money with those games.
Top notch. Yeah, I agree on that. Hockey always had top notch soundtracks. And it's not even rap or rock. They would put bands like Imagine Dragons on there, Imagine Dragon type. Last year there was I can't remember the name of it. Natural Born Killer was called. It was on the NHL 24 soundtrack. Great song. Sick. They got that soul. They got that meaningful music in hockey. You know, that pumps you up.
The warm-up music is the best. The warm-up music, the remixes, everything is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like those. I like those old Super Nintendo hockey games too. Where they used to do the dun, 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 dun.
Then they got that one. They always play. Man. They always get. Every time I hear the Final Countdown song, I'm thinking of hockey.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's the best. Like the warm up music is the greatest. You go there for warm ups, you get all the different types of music put together. You see the players out there, no bucket, no lids, just doing whatever they want. Trick shot magic. It's great.
Yeah.
Hockey, and plus hockey video games are the most fun sports games to play.
Oh, 100%.
They're the most fun. That's like more fun than Madden. Way funner than baseball.
Oh yeah,
they probably are more fun than Madden now. Madden's got all kinds of tricks going on.
Madden's not that good.
Me and my friend Jeff always said the only skillful sport that can compare to hockey is basketball, because you got to dribble the ball. Hockey is the most skillful sport.
I wouldn't even compare the NHL to a basketball, bro.
No,
all they do is run up and down.
No. But I'm talking about the dribbling.
No,
still. You can't just learn that and just come out with it, you know. But hockey's the most skillful sport.
Yeah. It's hard for a 5-year-old to play hockey. Trust me. You gotta be able to stand those skates, skate in line, shoot a puck. You know, if you're a goaltender, you gotta avoid.
Hockey
is a feat in hockey.
Hockey's the most skillful sport. You gotta learn how to skate. You gotta learn how to deke with the stick and everything.
Probably there's an art. One of the most dangerous too.
Oh, 100% is the most dangerous. We've seen a lot of guys with skate blades almost get cut. Some guys get cut. Clint Malarchuk back in the day. We've seen it all over the place. But they're trying to make guys more protective now. Protective equipment, cut-resistant equipment, neck guards, all that stuff. It is the most dangerous sport out there. I mean, we almost saw, look, you'll get into it. Like we almost saw last night, and there was a lot of clamoring for him from the Department of Player Safety. A lot of fans out there on social media, and even a lot of the writers were saying, how come Chatfield didn't get suspended for that MMA-style takedown on McMichael? Kind of put his leg in that slew foot position, took his leg out from behind him. That's not part of fighting in hockey. Two guys stand up. If they wrestle to the ground, they wrestle to the ground. But you don't pull an MMA-style move on a guy with no bucket on. And the way luckily he didn't die or anything bad didn't happen. But to me, my opinion, as an official on the ice and somebody who watches the game and all that, it doesn't matter. The result shouldn't matter of whether a guy gets hurt or not. It should be the action. And the action of Chatfield warranted a fine or a suspension because that's not part of the game.
Mm-hmm. Probably should have been more of a suspension.
Yeah, exactly.
To me,
I could have seen a couple of games. I could have been like, all right, a couple of games. But the problem is there's no precedent. Oh, but it's not in the rule book. It doesn't matter if it's in the rule book or not. That's not part of fighting.
It's intent.
It's the intent. The intent, the action. The action of putting your leg up behind another guy's leg and swinging him down is not part of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
That's MMA wrestling.
That's cheap shot stuff.
Yeah.
That's cheap and dirty hockey. It's cheap and dirty hockey. I didn't like it. Thank God nothing bad happened to McMichael. But those two teams, Carolina and Washington, play in about a week's time, 10 days' time. Oh boy, that's going. Those fireworks.
Who was the fight between? It was between the Capitals and who?
Michael and Chatfield, because Wilson was already in the box for a fight that he had earlier. There was towards the end of the game, it was 5-1 Carolina, and it was getting out of hand, and there was a bunch of fights and misconducts and penalties. I think Wilson, Chatfield are gonna talk to each other during warm up, and they're gonna be like, "All right, let's go have a fight. Let's settle this, and we're gonna end this thing," and so it doesn't carry over.
That's why you gotta love hockey players, man. You gotta love hockey players. Because if they have beef with each other, they'll do shit just like how he explained it.
Yeah.
They'll do shit let's.
You did something to me. I did something. All right, we gotta go settle it. I think luckily the big story wasn't McMichael getting hurt, but the bigger story out of it is Alex Ovechkin is now three goals away from breaking Gretzky, 2 from tying, and unbelievable. Right in his kitchen, as you guys saw off the top, that Ovi on the 5-on-3. Everybody's cheering him. Visiting when he's on the road, people are cheering him. Everybody wants to see it happen. We're getting
Yeah,
it back.
he's gonna do it the last game of the year. I have a feeling.
I mean, he's only 2 goals from tying right now. I think
I hope he don't do it.
he
Don't
gets
do it
done
against
by
my
the
don't
weekend.
He's
don't
got
do it
7
against my
games left.
boys. Do it
He's
before
got
the
7
Penguins.
games left. I think he'll get it.
Yeah, do it before the Penguins.
When it was like at 5, he had 5 to go, and
Yeah.
it was about 8 or 9 games. It was 9 games left at the time. I said, eh.
Hey,
But
he
then
could be a prick
when he got down
and
to 3 and it's 7 games left, yeah, he's gonna do it.
he could be a
This-
prick and get down to 1 and then sit out to the last game.
No, I don't think
Man,
so.
he ain't gonna
I think
do
he's
that.
gonna want to get it. I
This
think
is
he
hockey,
wants
dude.
to
This
get
ain't
it done.
football.
Yeah, I think these guys want to get it
Hey.
done so they can focus on getting better for the playoffs. It's either going to happen Friday or Sunday on the Islanders. His luck, he could score a hat trick against Chicago and do it for the home fans. If not, if he does it on the island, that's cool too. But I just think for the home fans, if he gets that hat trick to do it, that would be kind of cool for them. And if he doesn't do it by the weekend, he has Columbus, but you have a feeling that this was going to be a special week for him. He wants it. You can tell he wants it. This is something he's been working towards. And he's the best pure modern goal scorer in NHL history. You could put the Bossies up there. But again, everybody's like, "Oh, I can't believe Wayne only had 894." He's more known for his passing. Like Gretzky's kitchen was behind the net. Yeah, he scored goals, but he set up guys more than he scored goals. And to me, what he's doing, Ovechkin is doing since he's coming in the league, and he would have had it by now. Like, we got to preface this. He missed 16 games this season because of injury. He had 2 lockouts and a pandemic. He's missed parts of 3 seasons, 1 full season. So imagine if there wasn't a lockout in 2012-13 for half the season. COVID doesn't strike in March of 2020, and they don't have a shortened season. This wouldn't
even be this conversation wouldn't even be going on.
This season,
Right.
and he would have done it in less games than Wayne Gretzky. Way less games.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. You know what I really loved? I really loved about the goal that he got last night is that the Carolina fans, they stood up and cheered for him too. I mean, they were already kicking their butt, but that's besides the point. It was nice to see them cheer him getting goals. I hate to be the goaltender that gives up his record-breaking goal, though.
Well, it's funny. So right now I probably jinx him, but the stats come out already. Sorokin has yet to give up a goal to Ovechkin, the Islanders goalie. So if they get to the island, there's potential there for that. But yeah, Boston fans did the same thing on Tuesday night, I believe, too. They cheered him on the second goal. I mean, that was a tap-in for him. So that was really good. And, the Boston fans are cheering for him. Any hockey fans want to see this happen. We're so close now. And, again, I've said it on multiple places. I would hate for this thing, and it's not going to happen now. But you didn't, it's funny. You go back to it, and I've been writing and drafting everything from when it happened. And you think about it. You go back to last year. You only had 9 goals to begin the year. And you say, oh, man, I guess it's going to wait. It's probably going to be a little bit longer. It's probably going to drag into 25-26. And then he goes on that tear to end last season. Like 23 goals in the final, 26 games. It was ridiculous what he did. And then he needed 40-something to tie to come in this year, and he's right there. Just the fact that he's staying in shape, working his butt off, had time to go train down in Florida with Darius Kasparaitis and go work and work on his game, and it helps when the Capitals are winning, and it makes goal scoring more fun when all the cameras are following you. And this guy doesn't feel pressure. He wants to get it done. He's not gripping the stick, and you could clearly see that on the power play his teammates are feeding him because they know. And Dubois even looked at him. I think it was Sunday when they were playing against Buffalo. He just looks at him and he's like, "Yo, my bad for hitting that," because he would have had 2 goals that game, and then we'd be closer to 1 now. We'd be a lot closer. So I think teammates are trying to get out of the way when he's shooting the puck now. And this is what I think a lot of people thought this season might have been for the Capitals, because they didn't think they would be this good this quickly. And now you're seeing it. And, they're going to get their acts together. Carberry's like, all right, let's get this thing over with so we can focus on the playoffs now. and get back to playing capital hockey. So, yeah, Alex Ovechkin, if it's not by the weekend, it's next week. He gets it done.
Yeah.
We don't even have to worry about Pittsburgh, and it's
I
done.
don't think it's a decision. I think it's going to be a done deal. It's just who he's going to do it against, would break it or whatever the case may be. You never know. He might have that hat trick game. We don't have to worry about it no more after that. But I mean, that would be Ovi though. That would be Ovi. Ovi can do that. So you never know.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, he's so close to getting. Like, he's been close to multi-goal games. He's been close to he's gotten the hat tricks, but he's been so close recently getting 2 goals. Like, if he can get the 2 goals and then he needs an empty net or something, he's gonna get it. So I could see it happening.
So I got a question for you. In the East, it seems to be relatively close as far as the wild card positioning goes. In the West, I think it's a far gone conclusion considering there's only 7 games left, and the Wilds and the Blue have 89 points, and the closest one is the Flames. They got 82. I don't think that's going to happen for the Flames. But in the East, we got the Canadians, the Rangers, and the Blue Jackets all vying for that last spot. I don't think they're going to catch Montreal either. Well, I don't think they're going to catch who they're going to catch.
I think Montreal is going to lock that up
right now. Yeah,
I don't think they're going to catch Ottawa, but Montreal they could probably catch. But do you think that Montreal's got what it takes to keep that spot right now? I mean, I think the Rangers have been playing pretty good lately. Blue Jackets kind of stumbled lately too. Let me see what they got in their last 10.
Blue Jackets will mess it up at the end. The Red Wings are still in it?
No.
I mean, they're there. I mean, you could say they're not mathematically eliminated yet, but
yeah, they're eliminated.
They're eliminated.
They're eliminated.
They're eliminated.
So Montreal is 4-3-3 in their last 10. The Rangers playing pretty good, 5-4-1 in their last 10. And like I said, the Blue Jackets kind of been stumbling lately. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. One thing about hockey, man, somebody catches a hot streak, it's over. Whoever's the one that's not the beneficiary of whoever's got to jump over is screwed after that point. So I would say Montreal is holding everybody off, but I would look for the Rangers to try to get that last playoff spot. I think they're the only ones I think that can do it. I think they have a strong chance of taking Montreal out, but we'll see.
Like, for me, I think it would be – I want Montreal. I think just there's something special about springtime in Montreal at the Bell Center. Like, if you watched the game the other night, the atmosphere after they came back and beat the Panthers, right, 4-0 against the champs this year, right, Suzuki, the 2 goals, what Lane Hudson is doing, the Bell Center's rocking. Like, that atmosphere is why you want Montreal in the playoffs. And you want any original 6 team in, right, because of the atmosphere and what they bring and the eyeballs, right? You have that big fan base. But especially Montreal, like, they're a year ahead of schedule if they make the playoffs. Like, they're just supposed to be playing meaningful hockey. And if they miss, they miss. But I think there would be some disappointment because they've been in it pretty much right now since 4 Nations. So you want to cross the finish line, and I think they do have what it takes. But the problem is if they get in, their goaltender might run out of steam, and they just don't have a reliable backup goalie right now. Like, they tried Jacob Dobesh, but he's kind of, like, lost luster. They have Caden Primo, but do they really want to use him? I thought that's, like, an area that they need to go get. But they have a young team led by Lane Hudson, and, you know, and he's a rookie defenseman where he's doing 60 points. Like, to me, I think he's just won the Calder Trophy, 57 assists, a franchise record. So smooth on his edges, so good with his stick. Like, he's unbelievable what he does. And I think the Canadians would be great if they got in. It would be, I think for me anyway, I always have a soft spot for the Montreal Canadiens. Look, the Rangers are the most dangerous team because they have the best goalie, right? Like, if Igor Shesterkin gets hot, the Rangers can get in and go on a heater. The problem is the team in front of them isn't good. They're inconsistently consistent or consistently inconsistent, whatever, however you want to say it. But they almost blew the game against Minnesota last night, needed overtime. On Wednesday, they picked up 2 points in an overtime win, but they almost lost to Minnesota. What Ranger team are you getting game to game? Like, and the changes that they made haven't really been working, and I think the players are better off missing the playoffs so you can get a reset to this team because I don't think the players want to justify Chris Drury's actions there. I think it's been a full-on mutiny since the summer. And if the team makes the playoffs, well, it just justifies something that they don't want to believe. And I think the Rangers would be out anyway. But they have the best goalie. The problem is that they've been such a mess all year that you don't know what Ranger team you're getting game to game. Like, if they get hot, yeah, they can get past Montreal. But the problem is Montreal is playing with house money, and they play against their division, and right now they're 16-6 against the rest of the Atlantic Division. So, I mean, that those numbers don't lie, and they're playing really well. Like, they have Boston on Thursday night. That should be a victory for the Montreal Canadiens. Like, if you're a team that wants to make the playoffs, you have to go beat Boston, who is in dead last in the Eastern Conference right now, who decided that it was time to rebuild. And they're doing it.
And they had a complete meltdown.
Yeah, but you know what? I think for them, I think they decided that that was the direction that they needed to go in. And they could draft number 1 overall, which would be good for them. I think you get a Michael Misha in there, James Higgins. That would be really good for them to go in there. Michael Schaefer, that would be good for Boston to actually get a top draft pick right now and reset everything going on in Boston, be with Pasternak. But if you're Montreal, this is a game you have to win against Boston, and you got to beat the Flyers on the weekend. And if you can pick up these victories against teams you're supposed to beat, you're going to get in the playoffs. Like, that big thing was during COVID, not to knock the Detroit Red Wings, but at the time in 2020, they weren't as good as they are now. And everybody thought Montreal was a better team. And they're like, well, Montreal made the playoffs, but you can't lose to Detroit 4 times. Well, they got in because the bubble playoff. But this is a game you should win if you're Montreal. You have to beat Boston. Like, you can't give away 2 points or give away a point here. You have to pick up 2 points against the Boston Bruins to maintain pace. Because right now you own a tiebreaker with the New York Rangers because right now you play less games than they did. So you're sitting in wild card too. So win out and you're in for the most part, and hope the teams behind you stumble. It would be nice. Be a nice story for Columbus if they got in because of everything that went on. But I just don't think I think they're just going to run out of steam, and I think the runway's too long, even with games in hand. I'm not sure they can get across the finish line.
Right. So we talked about the wild card teams. The ones that have clinched the playoffs so far: the Jets, the Stars, and the Golden Knights in the West, and the Maple Leafs, the Capitals, and the Hurricanes in the East. Are you still kind of cool with what you said last time about who you think is going to be in the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I think Florida will be there. I think one of the Florida teams will be there. Again, the top teams are going to be in. They're going to be contending. Obviously, we could see. We're going to see a good team go home in the first round with, Colorado or Dallas. They'll lose in the first round. One of those 2 teams are going home. Like Florida, with a combination of Florida, Tampa, or Toronto, one of those teams could go home in the first round. All depends. And I think, for the most part, I think Toronto needs to win the Atlantic Division just to avoid playing 2 Florida teams twice that play the same system. And that's going to take a lot out of them. I know, well, let's be honest. If they play Ottawa in the first round, it's going to take just as much out of them if they play Tampa or Florida because of the emotional high that they're going to be on or the emotional loss that they have, because the Battle of Alberta is going to take a lot out of them, those players. But if I'm Toronto, I need and I want to win the Atlantic Division just to give myself a little bit easier. It's not going to be like easy because we thought easy was going to be 2021 when we played the Montreal Canadiens. They lost to 7 games. So Toronto needs to win the division and then have Tampa and Florida beat each other up and maybe get a wounded team coming in round 2 if you make it that far. But I still like those teams, out west. Vegas, underrated. They're just flying under the radar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg's playing well too. And then, to me, I think a wild card in all of this is St. Louis and where they finish, right? If they finish and they got to play Winnipeg Jets, Hellebuck, Binnington, St. Louis is playing really good hockey right now with the offer sheet boys, Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg. St. Louis could make noise in the first round, and maybe the Jets go home in the first round, and St. Louis could make that deep run like they had in 2019. Again, I think more teams out west can win the Cup than I do think out east, but Carolina's showing me some fight that I didn't think they had, and they're more of a team right now than a lot of, they're playing the best right now out of some of the Eastern Conference teams. So I could see Carolina make it to a conference final. over Washington. But I still think I still think a Florida team will come out of this thing. And I think it would be one of Dallas, Colorado, Vegas go to the final.
Okay. Yeah. Got a question for you here, dear, from Brent. He says, "Afternoon, guys. Listen while I finish up chores. For the whole panel, your Yzerman, what's your next 2 moves to improve the Red Wings?" I'm gonna give that one to you, Jim, because you're a little more in depth with that situation. I mean, as far as which you would feel that would be good moves, I think they need defensemen. To tell you the truth, that's what I think. So,
yeah. So I mean, there's been a lot of chatter out there, and I've been talking with a lot of people at the beginning of the year, and I talked to people at the Stadium Series, and I've seen some other outlets put this out, and yeah, they'll take credit for it, but that's okay. I've had it most of the year anyway. I think Yzerman's on the hot seat. I think it got a lot warmer, and it's going to get a lot warmer if they miss the playoffs again because it'll be 7 straight years no playoffs. So to me, what I would do is first, I think there's going to be some changes to his management staff and who's there. I think you might have to move out some of the guys that you have on that to see what we can do differently. They're going to have to find a goaltender. You're going to have to pick somebody. Like, the rotation that they have there is just not working. Find somebody, stick with them. They're going to have to figure out a way to unload some of those contracts that are just not working out. And you're going to have to push because you're a team that's right there that can't get over it. And I've written this before, and I'll say it again. If they continue to miss the playoffs, how will fans lose interest? So, to me, I think you have to look D because Detroit's always been good with D. But you have to find a way to score more goals and maybe unload some of these contracts that you have. Like, Tarasenko's got to go. You got to figure out a way to move the Andrew Kopp deal. He's been good, but you have a bunch of the same player there. I know they tried to get Steven Stamkos in the offseason. It just didn't work out. I know that was a guy that they wanted. They have good young talent. Mo Sider's there. Evanson's there. You have Lucas Raymond. Dylan Larkin's your captain. They have the pieces there, but Tom McClellan, I think, is a good coach. He's trusting a lot of young players to play. But you have to question some of Steve Yzerman's offseason moves because what he's doing in Detroit is trying what he did in Tampa. And they haven't been able to find that point Kucherov and Johnson combination in Detroit. That again, they had Stamkos and Hedman already there when he showed up, so you're already ahead of the game. But you're trying to do the same thing, and this team was technically in a playoff spot last year and just lost out because to Washington, and now they kind of took a step back. And I know Yzerman's talking about rebuild and doing things the right way, but at some point you have to make the playoffs because you were supposed to make the playoffs. Because you were in that bunch of, okay, who's supposed to take the next step? Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo. And entering the season, and I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes. Go check out Full Press Hockey. It was in August. I did an episode with Jarrett Book. We talked about the Canadiens. And I even said there, I said, if you're entering the season, you look at the Montreal Canadiens roster-wise, I put them ahead of Buffalo, and I put them ahead of Detroit. Because I was like, I think Montreal's a better team. Overall team. And then with the addition of Lane Hudson, a difference maker on D, that's the kind of player that the Detroit Red Wings are missing. A guy that can take over, will them into the playoffs.
And this is the next comment that Brent had on there. Where's our next Lindstrom at? What? I know he ain't on this team. I mean, no defenseman.
I think Sider's going to be a great defenseman, but I don't know if he's going to be Nick Lindstrom. There's not too many Nick Lindstroms out there. I mean, again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Lane Hudson's the first player since Nick Lidstrom in 91-92 to put up 60 points as a rookie. That's saying something. Nick Lidstrom was special. Sider can be special, but Lidstrom also took over games, too, from the back end.
Most definitely. And he said that's a great explanation. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I mean,
thanks for the question, by the way. Thanks for the interaction. I love the question. There's been a lot more Detroit chatter recently, though, just because of uncertainty up there. Like, the Ilitch family's not going to, like, they've always been loyal to guys. So, until they're not, right? Like, that's the thing. But I do think Yzerman really needs to look at his staff because I've heard rumblings about Chris Draper potentially in his job.
Well, I think the thing about the Ilitch family right now, it's not Mike Ilitch that's running the show,
No.
obviously, because he's passed away, but he kept good players. He didn't do all this crap that his son is doing right now. I just don't – between them running the Tigers and them running the Red Wings, I don't know which organizations he's trying to screw up the most. I mean, the Tigers are actually doing something now, but on the baseball side, but I still think he's having a rough time with the Red Wings, and I think that he appointed Yzerman because he thought Yzerman was going to be the one cleaning up the whole situation, so he didn't have to worry about the Red Wings as much as he's worrying about the Tigers. So it kind of backfired on him because we don't know. I mean, this is what Yzerman's 6th year, going into his 6th year. And I mean, we got to see something from it. I mean, people are saying, and this whole thing is extrapolated by the fact that Brett Holmes is here and he's done things for the Lions, and they feel that's the way Steve Yzerman's trying to build a team through the draft. And
but that's what he did in Tampa. The problem is you can't. I mean, look, the expression is lightning doesn't strike twice. You can't. Sometimes the plan you had in Tampa is not going to work out. They also signed good players too, right? They like when he was there, he got Ryan McDonough. He found a way to get Dan Girardi. Right, you drafted Andre Palat, you drafted Tyler Johnson, you drafted Nikita Kucherov. Those players aren't on this team. I mean, Jonathan Bergen is a good player, but he's not Kucherov. You have JT Compher, Andrew Comp, those contracts, and Patrick Kane's been fine. Marco Casper's a good player, right? Rasmussen's a good player. Soderblom could be something. Right? On the back end, like Sherratt's old. Justin Hall contract doesn't make sense. Legason is a good player. Sider's a good player. Edvinson's a good player. But you look at the other guys, Jeff Petrie. I mean, they have pieces coming from the AHL. It might be time to just let those kids cook like we're seeing in Montreal and say, all right, it's your team now. Go do it.
Yeah, that's a consensus among a lot of the hockey folks here in Detroit too. Just let the young kids play because there's really not nothing going on right now that Yzerman is doing or making up. And like Brett says, it's a part of the problem. Kid doesn't spend enough to win it all. Loyal to a fault, like the Fords are to the Lions, or Ford Senior was to the Lions. It's the same pattern. And the Red Wings, we were having this discussion earlier about our hockey prowess. Now, when I was, to my detriment, I watched hockey and I was really into hockey when the Red Wings were doing really good. So you can say I kind of a bandwagon hockey person when it comes to that because the Red Wings were really good from like 94 to 2004. So 2005.
The early 90s. When Lindstrom got there, they were one of the best teams. And they early 90s through 2015, they were really good.
Yeah, and it's really why I paid attention to hockey. And then once they started going downhill, and I saw that nobody was. First, it was a coach problem. Then it was an owner problem. Then it was a GM problem. I was like, dude, come on, guys, got to fix this.
This is a player problem.
Like,
here's the difference. So when Detroit was at their highest, right, when they're winning Stanley Cups and you could develop your guys in Grand Rapids and overcook them. And when they stepped into the lineup, they were fine. Similar to what Pittsburgh did, right? Jake Getzo's down in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. He comes up, boom. He enters, wins the Stanley Cup. And we know the rest is history, right? You saw Zetterbergs, the Datsuks, guys like that. Like, they can overcook them in Grand Rapids. The problem is, the NHL roster isn't as good as those NHL rosters, and some of those kids on Grand Rapids can take NHL spots right now. That's the difference. Back then, they couldn't. So you just keep them down there until they were ready. Now these guys are ready after a year and a half, 2 years in the AHL to come up and play in the National Hockey League. Especially when they're drafting as high as they're drafting.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah, that was, like I said, that's been a conversation through sports radio here, that they should just bring up the youngins and have them just start going at it. Um, now that we've gone through like half of our segments, just want to ask you a question, because I asked this to Robbie a couple of days ago, I believe.
I know what it is.
Who is a better player, Ovi or Sidney Crosby?
Two different players, in my opinion, right? Like, to me, they're two different players.
That's
Crosby,
pretty much what I said.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Crosby, if you look at Crosby, his game is overall two-way, 200-foot game. He can score, he can pass, his edge work is amazing, he takes face-offs, he plays center. Ovechkin is a goal scorer, plays on the wing, plays power play. Like, they both play power play, but Crosby can penalty kill if you need him to. And he's a winger, and he's just a scoring winger. And he's the most dominant and pure goal scorer the game has ever seen. Sidney Crosby is the best player I've seen in a game, going back to Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux and guys like that. Steve Yzerman's, the Joe Sakic's, guys like that, right? I think you're not going to see... You're getting close with McDavid and Matthews to having players like that in the league still. Those guys are just on a different level. McKinnon's too. For me, look, you can always go down resume and say better player. To me, if I'm going to start a team, I'm starting a team with Sidney Crosby over Alex Ovechkin. As much as goal scoring matters, Sidney Crosby can still score goals. He won a Rocket. Let's not forget that. I think he won 2 Rockets. He's won a Hart. He's won Art Ross's. But he has that it factor when it matters most in the playoffs and in big game situation. I'm not saying he's a better player than Ovechkin. I think they're two different players, but they're the best player at their positions right now and will be. And I think when it's all said and done, you're probably going to rank Crosby ahead of Ovechkin. But again, if I'm starting a team, I'm probably starting a team with Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, I came. Me and Robbie. I mean, didn't really. Well, Robbie's going to be a Pittsburgh
I'm a Penguin fan. Of course, I'm going to say Crosby. Okay,
Sidney Crosby. But I have to admit, I'm not a big Sidney Crosby fan. I think he's, just my opinion. It's just my opinion.
Everybody. What, you think he's a crybaby?
In reality, he is a pretty good player. Okay, and I think he's better than Ovechkin.
Yeah,
because just pure talent wise. Yeah, so I keep calling him a crybaby. I call him Sidney Crosby. But anyway,
how about to be fair in this situation, you can't go wrong with either player.
No, you can't go wrong with either player.
You can't go wrong with either player. They're both dominating players. You can't go wrong with either.
I mean, this decade of 2 decades worth of hockey in the National Hockey League has been based around Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. Like, it really has been. I mean, yeah, there have been other guys, and we all complained that they didn't market the other guys, like the Patrick Kanes and the Tays and guys like that, right? And the NHL's finally doing it with the Matthews, Mariners, like the different commercials that they have. But it was the Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby show from day one when the league restarted in 05-06. It's been those two guys. They're tied at the hip. Fair, unfair, that's what it's been. Now, we can go, if you want to compare position, take Ovechkin and Malkin, maybe we can have a discussion on who's the better player at that position. I mean, Malkin can play center too. That's the issue, because he can play two. He can play center and wing. So Russian guys, to me, whoever you choose, you can't go wrong with either guy, to be honest, of Ovechkin and Crosby. You just can't.
They're both amazing players. They're both amazing players.
Both generational players that you can't go wrong with.
So, so you think that a lot of players in the NHL, do you think the NHL is guilty of the same thing that most major sports are, is who they market in the game?
Yeah.
Fairly?
Yeah. I mean, it's been, that was the issue. It's been, why we got to see Crosby and Ovechkin all the time. It's all we talk about. Because, Patrick Kane was coming up. He was an American-born player. That was, the big one. What about Jack Eichel? What about all these special players outside of Crosby and Ovechkin? And and Brodeur was there occasionally, but it was those two front and center. Now we're seeing McDavid. Now we're seeing Matthews. Now we're seeing Marner. Now we're seeing McKinnon. Kachuk's in the commercials. We have Forsberg, Kyrou. Like, the goalies are having their own commercials. So I think they're realizing that they just can't focus on a couple of players. The league as a whole has great young talent. Let's go after everybody. The Jack Hugheses of the world are in there. Like, those you want to display the skill like of a Trevor Zegras and what guys can do to bring fans in. And
I mean, because I think that's a problem too. Because if you're trying to pump up the NHL, which it is taking on steam. However, you want to get more. You just don't want to hear about two players. If people say, "Well, yeah, non-hockey people." Well, hockey people that are casual hockey fans know Ovechkin, and Crosby. But if you don't promote other players in that position on commercials or whatever you want to do, drinks, whatever, everybody else is not going to be able to understand that point. They're going to be like, well, I thought I was watching Ovechkin, or I thought I was watching Crosby. What team is Crosby playing? See, there's not enough advertisement for the NHL, in my opinion, to continue it to go up in there. And they need that. They need that media coverage. They need that kind of because this is a day and age of media. They need to be on social media, the social media, as bad as it sounds. They need to be on some kind of social media and stuff like that. Something that can get the sport out there so people understand who these players are, because there's a lot of players in this league that have talent. And it's just not Sidney and Ovechkin. It's everybody behind him too. So, I mean, you got team. How many people know anybody on Montreal, for instance? That's
outside
a case
of
in
people in
point.
Montreal, outside of people in Montreal.
No.
I mean, unless you're a diehard fan and you cover the game, maybe Cole Caulfield because of what he did at World Juniors. But again, it's a maybe. Lane Hudson, I think, is the guy now that people are starting to take notice of because of what he's doing, because he's front and center in the Calder race. Like, I think people know about Macklin Celebrini too. But again, did you follow college hockey? Do you know, like?
Right.
I watch King games. I like my other favorite player in the league. I like Antti Kopitar.
Yeah, I mean Kopitar. That's another guy, right? That guy's.
Yeah, I love watching him. Ever since the first time I watched him was 2007. We played him on a regular season game in Los Angeles. He whooped the Penguins' ass. He had 4 points, and ever since that, I became a fan.
Right.
Like,
so,
I didn't hate him. I admired him.
The issue is for me, and this is the biggest issue for me, is the start times. And, like, a game's supposed to start at 7. Start the game at 7, right? Not 7:08, not 7:10. If it's a national game, not 7:15. Game starts at 7. If it's 7:01, 7:02, okay, fine. We're in that range. Especially these national games that start at, like, 8. Game doesn't start at 8:15. Start time, puck drop is 8 o'clock. Let's go. Drop the puck. But I think the NHL is getting better with marketing who they have, because, like, in the 90s, you knew guys, right? The Medanos, the Halls, the Gretzkys, the Messiers, the Lemieux, the Lindros guy, the big superstar names, the Waz, the Brodeurs, the Hashicks. Like, the casual fan knew who those players were. Now, the NHL focused on Crosby and Ovechkin a little too much, but they deserve to be focused on. But you missed out on other guys that were playing at that high level that you could have marketed, and now they're doing it with the next generation of top tier talent.
Yeah, I think they really need to focus on this generation too, as far as marketing is concerned, because that's really where I think the NHL will go up. It's always been traditional. People don't understand hockey because it's when they go up and down the ice and they do. I said it's more exciting than that. You don't understand. It's like the other night when they took off a goal. I forgot what game was it. Was it the Carolina or was it the Carolina game where he took off the goal because he dragged his toe over the line, and they caught it offsides. Yeah, they had to review the goal. I mean, That happened in the 90s and in the early 2000s too.
Except there was
and
no
it was
replay for offside. If you were offside and they didn't wipe it out and the goal stood, the goal stood. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like when they
I
brought
thought
replay
the
review, yeah, go ahead.
I thought the I thought the worst was the 2-line pass back in the day.
Oh, I mean, look at it. Look at it. Last night, go find a highlight, and this should be on loop. It should be. I didn't watch SportsCenter today, so I don't know if it made the SportsCenter. I know it made #1 in Canada because it's the Leafs. But the pass from Mitch Marner from his own zone to the opposite blue line to Matthew Nyes, what a pass! Like, unbelievable.
Oh
That's
yeah,
why
I
they took
remember
the
seeing
2-line.
that. That was good. I remember. Now I remember. I seen that. I seen that actually like a couple
That
nights.
was
That's why the rules came in 04, after the 04-05 lockout. They took that rule away because it was slowing the game down, right? You couldn't make
Yeah.
those type of passes. If you did, they got called back 2-line pass. It made no sense to have that in. The game evolved, and you're seeing that stuff, and that's what the game's all about. You want to spread the game out like that. That was a great pass, by the way, by Marner to Matthew Nyes. Unbelievable pass. They played a great pass.
Yeah, but by far that was the most terrible rule I ever seen in sports. Was the 2-line pass.
I don't know. The automatic runner and the start extra innings is pretty bad.
Baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't pay much attention to baseball.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm a Pirate fan. I can't pay attention to baseball. It hurts me.
So for our last 14 minutes, 13 and a half minutes right now, do you have anything else you want to add there, Jim? Is there anything else that we need to know about in the world of hockey?
Look, obviously, the big thing last week we talked about was Tortorella and everything, and that there was a blow up with Cam York and what's going on there. I think the Flyers could be not gonna say what happened. They got into an altercation. Some things were said. What was said on a podcast is not what was said. Tortorella did not say that, but he did get in his face. York got back in his face. I'm not sure Cam York will be on the Flyers come next season. Do I think John Tortorella coaches again? Maybe as an assistant somewhere. The Vancouver Canucks are not happy with the fact that, everybody's speculating that Rick Tocchet's going to go to the Philadelphia Flyers. He's still under contract. It's a team option to bring him back on a 1-year deal. I don't think Tocchet wants to come back on a 1-year deal and deal with the media circus for a year, again, asking about his contract. So if anything, he'll want a 2-3 year deal to be job security, at least to be with this team. But does he want to be with this team because of the turmoil that went on with this team? They have a lot of questions. Vancouver Canucks do with Brock Besser as a UFA. So we'll see where he goes. I think the big thing is out in Toronto, right? You have Mitch Marner, you have John Tavares, you have Matthew Nyes. Nyes is an RFA. There's a potential he could get an offer sheet similar to what we saw with St. Louis Blues did to Edmonton Oilers, Dylan Holloway, and Philip Broberg. So the Maple Leafs will have to watch out for that because every team has extra $7.5 million. But what does John Tavares get on a contract? It's most likely going to be 3 years. Is it $6 million? Is 6.5, $7, $7.5? Does he get to Stamkos $8 million potentially on a deal? But we know it's 3 years. What does Mitch Marner get? Matthews is at 13.25 right now. Does he get up to 13? Do they keep the band back together? I think Marner gets to July 1st. I think he's going to weigh his options and take a few days to be like, all right, I think I want to stay in Toronto, but he's going to see what else is out there. I think Tavares is going to end up staying, and I think they're going to sign Nyes too. Just because you don't want to lose a player like that. And I don't think you want to lose a player
Tavares,
like...
No.
Yeah, well, not even Tavares because he's doing right now 36 goals at his age. But I don't think they want to lose a player like Marner, just what he brings to the team too, right? Like, what else is out there and who are you going to replace him with? That kind of production. And he fits in a system. He's playing well. It's like, you go to a new team, it's going to take you time. We're seeing it in Nashville, right? Like, Stamkos, Marchessault, like, are they going to bounce back? Are they going to get it together? Are they going to trade one of those guys? Why did they sign both those guys? So, a lot of interesting things we're going to see. Like, if the Rangers miss, what happens there? Who's on the move? Is the coach gone? Is the GM gone? what happens with Gavrikov in LA. Again, a lot of moving parts. Like, what happens on the island if they miss? Is Lou Lamoriello going to come back again? They have to get younger. They have the issue with Duclair and Watt. I know Patrick Watt is not like the roster that he has, despite everything, and despite him sticking up for certain guys. I don't think he likes the fact that Pierre Engvall had a 7-year contract. Clearly something between him and Anthony Duclair happened the other night. They talked about it today. Duclair took some time away from the team. Again, I never understood the signing. I didn't like the signing. Anthony Duclair is not the offensive piece the Islanders needed in the offseason. Everybody could say hindsight 2020. I tell them, here's the link, go find it. I wrote it back when the signing happened. I didn't think it made sense. The team needed something else, and they didn't get it. And that was the best that they can do. I think the time has come for Lou Lamoriello to step aside and let somebody else take this job over on the Islanders, because they're just going to be a mediocre team every year. I know Barzell's hurt. I get it. But even when he was healthy, this team was just still mediocre. So there's questions there as well. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the offseason. But again, the playoff race, I think, is dominating. Obviously, Ovechkin, playoff race is dominating everything right now.
Yeah, well, as it should. This is the playoff.
Right.
It's becoming the playoff season. Yeah, right. Yeah, I was talking to some Philadelphia fans, a little while ago on my podcast, and they were talking about they don't want Tocchet either. They said, we don't want that guy. Why are we getting a retread?
Checkered past in this area. So
I'm shocked you actually had a civil conversation with Philadelphia fans.
I know Philadelphia fans. I know it's hard for you to understand.
Yeah, I know them too. They're assholes.
Whatever. Did you have anything you wanted to ask Mad Yenser to Jim the hockey guy?
Nothing at the moment. I can't think of anything right now to ask.
Nothing about your Penguins?
I already know what their issues is, man. They need defense, goaltending, and they got to get younger and get some grit.
I mean, I'll tell you this. I think I see reports out there again about Tristan Jarry being potentially not going to be there. I'll believe it when I see it. I heard years ago he wasn't going to be there before the contract, and then they ended up signing him. So if they can move on from that contract, could they move out Erik Karlsson? I think that's a possibility. What other direction they go in? Because they need to get younger, and they need to get faster, and they need to turn this thing around, especially with Sid still there and the way he's performing at a high level.
The thing about Crosby, I amend him because he don't want to leave. You got to respect him for that. But it's get younger, defense. Definitely got to get a goaltender in there. Jarry's not the answer. Neither's Nedeljkovic or whatever his name is.
Nedeljkovic.
If there's anybody that Blomqvist, he got potential.
Yeah, Blomqvist does have potential, but again, the team in front of him is not helping. The defense is not good. This team, the Penguins are just a bad hockey team right now, and maybe one of the NHL. The same thing happened with Detroit after their Stanley Cup runs happened to the Penguins. We got old, we got slow. Right, and the Caps tried to made sure that they weren't going to avoid that. I mean, it helps when they, Backstrom's at the end of his career, Oshie's at the end of his career, and they have injuries, and you're just like, okay, you can go to Robidas Island, and we have cap space to add players and get younger, and that's the difference, right? We've said this before, and I think that's the thing with Detroit, too. Look at the guys that Washington's drafted. Ryan Leonard's up there. He's going to make an impact. Like Jimmy Snuggerud in St. Louis. Like all these young college guys that are coming in there and playing and doing things like that. Like, I think that's
Kyle Dubas, he said a couple weeks ago, he thinks the rebuild will really take 2 to 3 years. I don't believe him.
Well, I
think it will take a lead.
Then, if that was really the case, then at some point, Sidney Crosby's going to go to Dubas and be like, look, I don't want to be a part of this thing anymore.
Yep.
Which would be tough, but I still think he stays the next 2 years. Unless, there's an opportunity to really go win a Stanley Cup again. But he's such a loyal guy, I just don't see him leaving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Malkin already said if they were talking about trading him, he's just going to retire.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, there's the possibility.
Letang, we got Chris Carson. He never played defense in his whole entire career. I don't know why we signed him or traded for him at all.
You got to get
that
these
was
guys
a
ready. Look, it again. I've said this before. I'll say it again. It's a double-edged sword with the Penguins and their ownership because they have an edict to go win because of the guys that are there, but they need to get younger, and it's a tough balancing act to do both.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do both.
and Tristan Jarry. It all started with that contract they gave him.
Started way before that.
But I think that contract was like. That was like it right there. That was like the finishing like touch.
Oh yeah, that was the final nail in the coffin. I mean, look, it goes back to the summer with Malkin, Letang, Raquel. Like once Raquel got signed, pick Letang or Malkin, not both guys. This could have been a lot better, and it wasn't. Brian Burke and Ron Hextall saw it, and ownership didn't want to hear about it.
Ooh, that was horrible. They should have just let Malcolm walk.
Yep. But again,
they should have let Malcolm walk, man. Like,
but again,
because they said something about Crosby had influence on the situation that he wanted them re-signed and everything because they always played together their whole career.
Well, so did Fleury. You could throw Fleury in there. That was their core.
They got rid of Jake Getzel. I was so pissed about. I was so mad about that. I'm like, you got rid of Jake Getzel?
Yeah, a lot of people were mad about that one.
You should have kept him and got rid of Malkin.
Yeah, I think so too.
Don't get wrong, I like Malkin. I like Malkin, but I love the Penguins more.
Is it to the general knowledge that now that rookies that are drafted, do you think they should automatically? I mean, it sounds like that they should be playing immediately now, kind of like what the NFL is doing, is throwing them into the fire, like first round draft picks and stuff like that. I know it's not the same thing between NFL and NHL as far as drafts go, but do you think that they're rushing these kids out there? Do they need to be rushed out there because they play and they're adding a level of more excitement to the NHL? What is your views on that one?
It all depends, right? Like Celebrini was ready to come in after first year of college, right? You could tell he was ready, NHL ready. It all depends on these players, right? Like the problem is when we had COVID, a lot of kids lost development time in junior and college. There wasn't a lot. You couldn't really scout. I look at it this way. I think if you can have time playing college hockey and developing your game, you look at all the good young defensemen. Cale Makar, 3 years of college. Quinn Hughes, 3 years of college. Luke Hughes in New Jersey, 3 years of college. You develop in college. You get bigger in college. You can hone your game in college. You still have to develop in the league, but you have a better understanding of your position, especially for defensemen. Forwards, it's different because you can make that transition, but usually guys stay 2-3 years. You have to be an exceptional player at 18 to be really playing in this game. If you can take time to go play pro someplace and learn the game, and I think that's the one rule if I had to change something, would be like these junior eligible kids, if you're 18, I think you should be able to go play in the AHL or, same with the college kids. You should be able to go play in the AHL. It shouldn't be wait till 19 to do that. Because if you we saw in the NBA, guys at 18 could come into the league before they changed the rule. But I think 19 is tough because sometimes guys at 18 are not good enough for NHL, but they're too good for junior or college, and they don't really have a place to play. So that, to me, it all depends on your skill level and your scouting report and how you play. And you're seeing Lane Hudson, guys that have a year to just develop someplace are usually better off than the guys that get thrown into the fire right away.
Well, that's great insight, because I was thinking about that too. Now we have got to the end of our show, and again, thank you, Jim. Dude, you are awesome. I love these Hockey Thursdays. I think our viewers learn a lot more from your outlook of things, and I know I do, because I used to be really into hockey too. And also thank you, Mad Yinser, for showing up too, and Brent for being in the comment section and asking questions for Jim. We will see you tomorrow at the same time, 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am your host, B. Strilla. Again, thank you for our guest host there, Jim the Hockey Guy. That's his nickname now, Jim the Hockey Guy. And for me, Imagine Inser, and Jim, y'all have a great afternoon, all right? Thank you for watching.